successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Regina Stevens, New York Transportation Development Corporation's Assistant Corporate Secretary. Before we begin our meeting this afternoon, I would ask that everyone please mute your lines unless you are speaking. I will now take a roll call of the directors to ensure that we have a quorum present on the line. Please say present when you hear your name. Andrew Kennedy,
Present.
Kathleen Mize,
Present.
Pravina Raghavan.
Present.
Thank you. Acting Chair Mize, we have a quorum. You may start the meeting.
Thank you, Regina. Good afternoon. Before I call this meeting to order, I will note for the record that I will serve as the acting chair for today's meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York Transportation Development Corporation for Friday, June 3rd, 2022. Before we get started, I will ask that everyone mute their phones until you are ready to speak. Also, I will ask that anyone wishing to speak to please state your name before you begin. I'd like to note for the record that in accordance with current legislation, this meeting will be conducted via teleconference. I will also note for the record that the public has been given the opportunity to comment on the agenda item by submitting their written comments to nytdc@esd.ny.gov by 5 p.m. yesterday, and no comments were received from the public concerning today's agenda item. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to today's agenda item. If so, please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to the item. Hearing none, I will now ask Matt Gray to present today's agenda item requesting authorization to perform certain acts in connection with the senior debt financing of the construction of the new JFK Terminal 1 project. Matt, when you're ready.
Thank you, Kathleen, and good afternoon, directors. Today, we are asking the board to authorize the performance of certain acts and take all related actions in connection with the senior debt financing for the construction of the new Terminal 1 project at John F. Kennedy International Airport. In December 2019, New York Transportation Development Corporation, or the corporation, authorized inducement of the financing of certain aspects of the redevelopment, construction, financing, operation, and maintenance of the new Terminal 1 passenger terminal facility at John F. Kennedy International Airport, at facilities known as Terminal 1, Terminal 2, and Terminal 3, to be referred to as the project. The COVID-19 pandemic, as well as disruptions in the financial markets, resulted in a delay in finalizing the relevant senior debt documents, which have now been drafted, reviewed, and are substantially finalized. The board is being asked to approve the operative provisions, terms, and transactions contemplated by such senior debt financing documents, consisting of a credit agreement, common terms agreement, related documents, and related actions in connection with the project. The project is being developed by the project company JFK NTO LLC, or the lessee. The lessee is a newly formed special purpose Delaware Limited Liability Company, all interests of which on the closing date will be owned by Mars NTO LLC, JLC JFK Aggregator LP, and Ulico Infrastructure JFK REIT LLC. Collectively, they'll be referred to as the financial sponsors. The lessee will be a tenant under the lease agreement between the lessee and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. There was a public announcement on February 18, 2022 that Ferrovial SA, a Spanish infrastructure company, is acquiring 96% of Mars NTO LLC from the Carlyle Group. The project is expected to be completed in 3 phases. Phase A to commence in June 2022 and open in June 2026. Phase B1 to commence in June 2026 and open in April 2028. And Phase B2 to commence in April 2028 and open in October 2029. Project will be funded with equity to be provided by the financial sponsors and through third-party debt to be borrowed by or issued by the corporation. The third-party debt is expected to include bank loan facilities and letter of credit facilities. Collectively, we refer to them as bank loan facilities, and tax-exempt and taxable bonds issued by the corporation, or the bonds. A commercial banking syndicate has committed to make available the bank loan facilities, which will be dispersed in the form of loans and letters of credit to the corporation as needed from time to time to fund construction costs. As capital market conditions warrant, the bonds may be issued to pay for project costs and or to refinance the bank loan facilities. The corporation's liability to pay debt service on the bonds and borrowings under the bank loan facilities will be limited to payments received from the lessee. The lessee will enter into interest rate hedging contracts to mitigate the risk of interest rate changes on the borrowings under the bank loan facilities and the bonds. The corporation will not be a party to the interest rate hedging contracts. The bank loan facilities will be evidenced by an amended and restated credit agreement, or the credit agreement, by and among the lessee, MUFG Bank Limited as the administrative agent, the lenders, and letter of credit issuing banks that will be parties thereto from time to time, collectively to be referred to as the lenders, and the corporation, pursuant to which the lenders will make available to the corporation a term loan facility, liquidity facility, a working capital facility, and a security deposit facility. The corporation will be the conduit issuer under the credit agreement and will transfer the borrowings under the credit agreement to the lessee through a building loan agreement and a project loan agreement among the corporation, the lessee, and MUFG Bank Limited, the intercreditor agent. The credit agreement provides for a closing date term commitment of approximately $1.43 billion, a delayed draw term commitment of approximately $4.9 billion, a working capital facility commitment of approximately $50 million, a liquidity facility commitment of approximately $200 million, and the security deposit facility commitment of approximately $50 million. The credit agreement is a bank credit facility and does not require the corporation to issue tax-exempt or taxable bonds on behalf of the lessee, and does not govern the terms of such bonds. The Common Terms Agreement allows for future bond issuances if certain terms and conditions are met, and makes provision for the sharing of collateral and payments. Building Loan Agreement and Project Loan Agreement facilitate the transfer to the lessee of advances under the credit agreement and proceeds from future bond issuances. An additional board meeting would be held for the directors to approve the form of final documents and authorize transaction terms with respect to the issuance of bonds. All of the corporation's liabilities and obligations related to its participation in the project will be limited solely to payments received from the lessee under loans and other agreements between the corporation and lessee. The obligations of the lessee will be secured under and pursuant to an all assets collateral package provided by the lessee. The lessee will enter into the amended and restated Common Terms Agreement with, among others, JFK NTO TRS LLC, the taxable REIT subsidiary, MUFG Union Bank NA as the collateral agent, on behalf of itself and the other secured parties, including the corporation, MUFG Union Bank NA as the account bank, the intercreditor agent, the administrative agent, and each other secured party that becomes a party thereto, collectively the secured parties. As security for its obligations under the project loan agreement and the building loan agreement, respectively, the lessee will grant mortgage liens on and security interest in the interest of the lessee under the lease to the corporation. In addition to the security interest in lessee's leasehold interest, the obligations will be secured by a lien on and security interest in personal property of the lessee, including, but not limited to, the lessee's contractual rights and rights to receivables under the lease and its equity interests in the taxable REIT subsidiary in favor of the collateral agent for the benefit of the secured parties. The taxable REIT subsidiary will grant the security interest in and to all of its personal property to the collateral agent for the benefit of the secured parties. The corporation shall assign all of its rights, title, and interest as mortgagee to the collateral agent for the benefit of the secured parties pursuant to a project loan collateral assignment, an assignment of the project loan mortgage, building loan collateral assignment, and assignment of the building loan mortgage. In addition, the equity interest of the lessee will be pledged pursuant to an equity pledge agreement to the collateral agent for the benefit of the secured parties. In advance of the issuance dates of the tax-exempt bonds, the lessee intends to enter into interest rate hedging contracts to manage the risk that market interest rates will change before the bonds are issued. The corporation will not be a party to these contracts, and the lessee may terminate the hedging contracts in connection with the issuance of the bonds and would finance any hedge termination costs it may incur with the proceeds of the bonds. Applicable federal tax regulations do not permit such termination costs to be financed with the proceeds of tax-exempt bonds unless the corporation identifies the interest rate hedges on the books and records maintained for the bonds. The identification must be made no later than 15 days after the date or dates on which the lessee enters into the hedging contracts. Corporation's identification of the interest rate hedging contracts for the tax-exempt bonds is solely for purposes of federal tax compliance and does not cause the corporation to be a party to or create any obligation of the corporation with respect to the interest rate hedging contracts for the tax-exempt bonds. In accordance with the resolution, you are hereby requested to, 1, approve the terms of the credit agreement and related financing documents being entered into in connection with the disbursement of the bank loan facilities and authorize the incurrence of the senior secured indebtedness under the credit agreement on a negotiated basis. 2, authorize the execution of certificates identifying solely for federal income tax compliance purposes interest hedging contracts for the future issuance of tax-exempt bonds by the corporation. And 3, authorize certain officers and employees of the corporation to take all actions deemed necessary to consummate the transactions contemplated by the credit agreement and related financing documents being entered into in connection with the disbursement of the bank loan facilities. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. I'd like to remind everyone to please state your name before speaking. Are there any questions or comments from the directors with regard to this item? As noted earlier, we do not have any comments from the public with regard to this item. I will now entertain a motion for approval on this item.
This is Pravina, motion to approve.
Thank you, Pravina.
This is Andrew
Second.
Kennedy. This is Andrew Kennedy. Motion second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, thank you. The motion carries. There being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Hi, this is Pravina, motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in today's meeting. Everyone have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Oh my goodness.